everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Courtney and it's time for another week of What's for Dinner. Every Monday I share one of these videos on my channel just to share the recipes and meals that I created for my family throughout the week, just to kind of give you guys some inspiration or motivation or meal ideas, whatever it is that you are needing. I know that I often look to other people to get some ideas when I feel like I'm in a rut or we're cooking the same thing, or I just really feel like I want something totally different. So I hope you guys will find a little bit of inspiration from my video. So this week we did smoke a brisket, which means for the majority of this video, you're going to see all the ways we used the brisket. We do this probably 2 or 3 times a year, and then we will eat on it for a whole entire week. So I'm going to share the way that we make our brisket. We do it on a smoker, but for years we did not have a smoker, and I did it in the oven, so I'll share both ways with you guys. And as always, any recipes that I have are listed down below in the description box. I will either type them out or link them, whatever the case may be. So first off, I've got, I think it's called a Packer brisket. It was on sale the other day, so I actually picked up 2 of them. I bought one and then went back and got another one because it was such a good deal. So I just poured a little bit of that Claude's marinade on top of it. I swear by this stuff. It is the most amazing brisket marinade. It turns out perfectly every time. I like to let it sit in that marinade for 24 hours, and then I just go ahead and pop it on my smoker. You don't have to drain the liquid out if you don't want to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Now, if you don't have a smoker, just pop it in your oven on a low setting, anywhere between 150 and 250, depending on how low your oven goes. And then just let that brisket cook low and slow for like 10 to 12 hours. For us with the smoker, we cooked ours for about 16 hours. It was perfect, just falling apart, juicy, the whole bit. All right, so I needed to make some sides to go with it. So here I am making some mac and cheese. If you've seen me make Alfredo sauce, which I did on a previous video, and I will actually do later on in this video, this is pretty simple. I just went ahead and added some butter and oil to the pan, tossed in some heavy whipping cream, and then I seasoned it with garlic powder and paprika, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I'm gonna let that simmer. And then I'm going to go ahead and just stir in some cheese. You can use whatever cheese you want. I personally really like the triple cheddar cheese. I think it tastes fantastic. So I went ahead and stirred in a generous helping of that. It was probably a little bit over a cup. Now, I am making a very small batch because my husband and myself are the only ones that eat homemade mac and cheese in our household. I'm only cooking a little bit less than half a box of pasta. So if you're making it for your family, you're really going to want to do more than what I did. I also stirred in a little bit of Dijon mustard. It kind of gives that zing that you get from expensive cheeses, like that tang that they all kind of have. It mimics that in this simple homemade mac and cheese. But anyway, once everything is simmering and bubbling is when you add in your cheese. Make sure it is nice and melted and you have a nice smooth and creamy sauce. I know a bunch of recipes call for, the flour and butter and oil to make a roux. I've done that in the past and it tastes fine. It really does. But I find out a lot of times I end up with like a gritty texture that I just find really off-putting. If I use this simple method, which is what I also use for my Alfredo, it comes out smooth and creamy every single time. Now, I mean, it's fattening, but come on, we're making homemade mac and cheese. Of course it's fattening. I know heavy whipping cream has like a ton of fat in it, but I'm sure you could probably do this with half and half too, because it would reduce down a little bit and it would still thicken up nicely. I just think heavy whipping cream does the job. It tastes good, it's rich, and it's creamy, and we don't eat this every single day, so I think it'll be okay. Anyway, I added in my pasta and I tossed it around in the sauce and made sure every bit was nice and coated. I am using farfalle pasta or farfalle. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I think it's farfalle. I think I said it wrong the first time. Anyway, I just stirred it really well and made sure everything was nice and coated. And because this has enough fat in it, I did not spray my pan and it did not stick. I just tossed it in this tiny casserole dish, and this was maybe 4 servings at the end of the day. Like I said, it's not a ton. I topped it with a little more of that shredded cheese because you can never have too much cheese in mac and cheese. And then I'm going to sprinkle on a little bit of breadcrumbs on the top just to kind of give it like a nice crispy topping. And then I'm going to put it in a 350 degree oven. And it doesn't take very long to cook. I mean, really, you're just making sure that the cheese on top melts and the breadcrumbs get a little crispy and toasty. So like 350 for 20 minutes. Okay, so like a week or 2 ago, I had made deviled eggs on one of my videos and asked if anybody had any recommendations for different deviled egg recipes, and One of my viewers, their name is MS, did actually give me an idea. They suggested $1 Million Deviled Eggs by Sugar Spun Run. I will link the recipe down below because I am actually cutting the recipe in half. My husband and myself are the only two that eat deviled eggs in the house. Occasionally, my oldest son will have one. He's not the biggest fan, but he usually will try at least one. But anyway, you guys, these deviled eggs were so good. And I even forgot one ingredient, but they were still fantastic. So I started off by mashing up my yolks and getting them all broken down. And then I took about 1 to 2 tablespoons of real bacon pieces. And then I just did a fine mince with them because I didn't want them in huge chunks. Just breaking them down with my knife there, and I'm going to mix them in. The recipe also calls for butter, which I've never put butter in my deviled eggs before, but I really think it made them creamier and definitely a lot richer. These were so good. It also calls for mayonnaise, yellow mustard, and Dijon mustard. And then just the juice of sweet gherkin pickles, which I did. It also calls for salt, pepper, Tabasco, paprika, and sugar. And y'all, I forgot the sugar. And these were still amazing. So I can only imagine they are so good if you include that ingredient. Anyway, I highly recommend at least giving these a try, if nothing else. They were so good. I did not put the paprika into the deviled eggs mix. I just sprinkled it over the top of the eggs. But man, these were definitely a hit. Again, I will link the recipe down below so you guys can get exact measurements there. Like I said, I cut this recipe in half. They were so good. I mean, they lasted this meal. They were gone. Even my oldest, who's not a huge fan, really did like them. Of course, he loves bacon, so that bacon certainly did not hurt at all. But these were fantastic. I hope you guys will try these. Again, they were from one of my viewers. Their name is MS. Thank you again for submitting this recipe. It was so delicious. All right, here's a peek at the brisket before my husband shredded it straight off the smoker. Oh, it was so amazing, so tender, so juicy, so delicious, so flavorful. I absolutely love when we do brisket. It is so delicious. And I love cooking once and having a whole bunch of meals. There's that mac and cheese. It was so good. My husband has not stopped talking about it all week. I roasted some potatoes, which I've shown on my channel before. Just a simple process. And of course, it was New Year's Day, so we had black-eyed peas with our brisket and those deviled eggs. It was awesome. All right, so let's jump into how I used the brisket the rest of the week. So I really am a fan of like at-home style chipotle bowls. I've made them a bunch of different ways and we really enjoy them. So I'm making them with brisket. I did have some rice going in the background, which I've shown a million times on my channel. I just do 1 cup of rice to 1.5 cups of water and a tablespoon of rice wine vinegar, and I let it cook till it's done. Super simple. just plain white rice, not cilantro, lime, or anything. We just used white rice. But I'm getting all my ingredients together. I did drain and rinse 1 can of black beans. And then I had a couple of cans of corn, and Jensen had been asking for corn. So I thought, sure, we'll use half of it to make these bowls, and he can just munch on the other half. He really loves corn. So I also had these little baby tomatoes that I really needed to use. I don't remember what they were. They were not grape tomatoes. I can't remember what they were called, but they were good. So I just went ahead and sliced them in half. And then I have a bunch of olives because I buy them in the big packs, usually at Sam's Club. And then for some reason I thought I was out and I bought some more at the grocery store. So guys, I have like 10 cans of olives. I mean, we like olives, but oh, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I thought those would be a really great addition to these bowls. So I just drained the can and then just sliced each one in half. And I think that's the perfect serving size. Of course, we'll just eat these whole out of the can too. We're not picky. Everyone in my household likes them except for Camden. But he's kind of picky about everything. So anyway, you can kind of put on whatever you want. If you have other vegetables that you want to put on there or topping ideas or anything like that, I mean, that's totally up to you. I kind of feel like these are just a great baseline idea, and then you kind of go nuts with them however you want. I could even see for some applications, like if you had chicken and you were making a bowl, maybe throwing in some pineapple. That would probably be fantastic. Some pineapple, maybe some diced up poblano peppers. I don't know. I think that sweet heat would be really good. Anyway, I'm pulling out the brisket. After we shredded it, I just covered it well with foil and we're storing it in the oven. I think we had 1 piece of jalapeno cheddar sausage left too. We had thrown that on the smoker. That eventually got eaten throughout the week too. That stuff is good. If you guys have access to the Opa brand sausage, I cannot recommend it enough. We really, really love it. And of course, it's what they serve in Fredericksburg, which if you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that we did go there not too long ago. My husband and I love visiting Fredericksburg, a little German town in Texas. So we do enjoy some Opa sausage every once in a while. Anyway, the brisket was shredded, so I just kind of chopped it up into more bite-sized kind of pieces because some of them are like long stringy pieces. So I just went ahead and broke it down a little bit, chopped it up, and I got out enough to make 3 bowls because again, my youngest 2 don't eat beef. They're just not fans, and that's okay. They will grow into it, I'm certain. It's one of those trust the process moments. My oldest, as a small child, was a super picky eater. He ate like chicken nuggets and applesauce and Cheez-Its, and that was like all he ever wanted to eat. And now that he has grown, it started probably about the time he was 10 or 11, he'll eat anything and everything. I mean, he loves raw fish. He loves all kinds of stuff. So I'm trusting the process that their palates will develop and my younger 2 will branch out and start eating a lot more food all on their own, just like my oldest did. I could be wrong. I'm not an expert, but trust the process. Anyway, I'm still just chopping up that brisket into nice palatable bite-sized pieces and chunks, just getting it broken down so it's nice and easy to eat in these bowls. And then I'm just going to kind of put everything in a bowl together. I'll show you guys my assembly method, all the things that I put on there. And of course I topped mine with Catalina dressing. If you've not tried like a taco salad or anything with Catalina dressing, try it. It is amazing. I know it sounds a little strange, but just trust me. So good. So anyway, there's the plain white rice. Then I put on some beans. We use black beans. You could use pinto beans or kidney beans or whatever you want. I just favor black beans for stuff like this. I've got the rice and I'm going to heat that up a little bit because the brisket was cold out of the fridge and everything else had kind of been sitting while I was getting everything together. You could put anything you want on there. I had some 505 green chili salsa. I think that's what it's called. It's something I pick up at Sam's. It's really, really good. I forgot to show it, but I did put that on one of the bowls on this particular night, and it was fantastic. I did it in place of the Catalina dressing, and it brought so much flavor to the table. So there's always that too. Like I said, make it your own. Do it however you and your family like. Just kind of make it fit your taste, but there's our bowls. Okay, so for this night, I'm keeping it super simple with some sandwiches. And as you can see, my dog has figured out that he too loves brisket. And he just kind of stayed at my feet every night when I was working with it. And of course, I shared with him because who can't share with a face like that? Anyway, I did start off by toasting some sub rolls just to kind of add that extra layer of flavor. And it keeps them from getting quite as soggy. And then I chose to use some horseradish sauce on here because I think beef and horseradish is like a match made in heaven. And then I'm just going to put some of the reheated brisket on there. So for this sandwich, I was making it for my son, so there's no cheese on it. For my husband and myself, I did put some Swiss cheese on it. Had I had more time this night, I think I would have also enjoyed putting some sauteed peppers and onions, like bell peppers, I think that would have been phenomenal. But anyway, it was a sandwich. It was good. It was delicious. It was filling. I would totally eat it again. I mean, it was awesome. So, so good. Okay, so how are we going to use brisket tonight? First, we're going to start by chopping it up. Again, the pieces get kind of long and stringy, and I just like to make it a little bit easier to work with, a little bit easier to eat. So I will usually just start off by kind of chopping it up into more bite-sized pieces. And that is what I'm doing here. We are starting to run out of brisket. It didn't make it the full week. Sometimes it does. This was a smaller one, so it didn't. So I did end up actually having one extra meal in this video that was not brisket related. So one other thing I would like to point out is I know brisket's expensive and some places it's hard to get. So you could totally make any of these recipes with any type of pork roast or any type of beef roast. That is totally up to you. You could cook them in the crock pot. You could cook them in your oven. You could cook them on a smoker. That is also up to you. But that meat is totally interchangeable for any of the ways that I'm doing this. And of course, you can get huge pork shoulder roasts and things and do the same thing where it lasts all week long. All right, so the theme tonight is obviously some more Mexican food because we really like Mexican food. I'm going to make some of my homemade salsa, which I've shown on my channel before, but I'll show it again. I started off with a can of fire roasted tomatoes. You can use any kind of canned tomatoes you want. I just think fire roasted adds like an extra layer of flavor that I really, really enjoy. Then I had half an onion in my fridge, so I went ahead and peeled it and just kind of put it in smaller pieces just so my food processor had an easier time. And I tossed that in there, and then I had these 2 poblano peppers just hanging out waiting to be used for something. And so I just went ahead and got the seeds out, and then I'm just going to break them down into kind of smaller pieces again so the food processor has an easier time breaking them down. Every once in a while I get one of these that's hot. Usually they just have great flavor with the almost no heat, mild heat, and this time was no exception. The flavor was amazing though. So I put both of those in, and a little bit of salt and pepper and some lime juice, and then I just kind of turn on the food processor and let it break everything down. I didn't completely liquefy it. I like some chunks, so there was still like a lot of texture left to the sauce, but everything was broken down nicely. The flavors were able to like mingle together, and it was really, really good. I do make salsa like this almost every single week in my house. We use salsa a lot. We live down in Texas, and I think that has something to do with it because like everywhere you go here, people just serve chips and salsa or chips and salsa and queso, and I think it's just part of like how it is down here. So we just make salsa every week. We enjoy chips and salsa. We put salsa on our breakfast food. We put salsa on our dinner. We put salsa on pretty much everything. So I just make up a nice batch. I'm not an expert, but we really do like this. I think it tastes a lot like what I get when I go out to eat in restaurants. So if that's something you're looking for, I really recommend this. And again, you can control the heat level by however you choose to use peppers. Like I'm using poblano, so this time it's not hot. Sometimes I use jalapeno, which, you know, you never know if they're going to be hot or not. But you can always add more or take them away. Don't put seeds in. Sometimes if we want a little more heat and these are too mild, I will add in some red pepper flakes. It just kind of depends. I kind of cook with what I have on hand sometimes, and I buy these for eggs and stuff because my oldest son loves some diced poblanos in his eggs. If I have enough left over, this is what I do with them. But anyway, there is my homemade salsa. I've made it before on my channel, but here's another rundown of it. I'm also making some guacamole for meals on this portion of the video. So I will go ahead and just link the video I have up on my channel that shows how I make guacamole because I did not film it. But there's that salsa. Again, it's got some great texture and it tastes amazing. It's so simple. And there I had some tostadas. I had some refried beans, the brisket, lettuce, salsa, guacamole. Of course, I put some sour cream on mine. And then we just used all the leftovers the next night to make some tacos. This is obviously my son's plate because there's no cheese. We ran out of brisket, so I just made myself some bean and cheese nachos with sour cream, guacamole, and some homemade salsa, and I was quite content. But anyway, like I said, the brisket did not make it through the whole week. So I decided to kind of keep it simple and make what my husband and I would call a throwback meal. When we first got married and had our son, we were very, very young and very, very poor. So we had a lot of very simple meals, and this was one of them. Back in the day, pasta was super, super cheap. Frozen veggies were super, super cheap. And you could buy pasta sauces very, very cheaply. They didn't always taste fantastic, so I would doctor them up. And we used to have broccoli Alfredo. No meat because meat was expensive. Just broccoli Alfredo on some pasta. And we hadn't had it in years, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it because we have broccoli in the freezer. So I am going to kind of elevate it by making homemade Alfredo sauce. If you just have jarred stuff or whatever, that is fine. That's how I made it for the longest time for us. This was just kind of things I had on hand and just to kind of, elevate it and make it a little bit different. So I started off with a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of oil and a tablespoon of garlic, and I let them just kind of saute in the pan for like a minute or so till the garlic's fragrant. I didn't want to burn it, garlic burns so quickly. Then I added in about 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream. And then I added in some fresh ground black pepper and some Italian seasoning. I did not add any salt because I am adding Parmesan cheese to this in a minute, which is very, very salty. I can salt at the end if I want to, but that way I don't run the risk of over salting, I wait till the Parmesan's in and then decide if I want to add any more. And my husband really doesn't like his food to have much salt in it at all. He is, not a lover of salty things. So typically I won't add any more and I'll just salt mine. Because I kind of feel like it needs just a tiny bit. Anyway, I let all this simmer for a little while, and of course heavy whipping cream will simmer and thicken as it cooks, which is what I like about it. This is so much easier than having to make a roux or anything like that. For years I've made roux for all kinds of stuff, the butter and the flour, and you cook it and then you add the liquid to it, and that's fine, but for me that's like really temperamental, and it always has a little bit of a gritty texture to it. This was a game changer for me, heavy whipping cream, and I think half and half would work as well. And then just adding your stuff to it, wow, this is so much better. The quality is better in the end. It's more velvety and creamy and delicious. So I think I'm just going to stick with this method for my cream sauces from here on out. Anyway, after it simmered for a few minutes and I could tell it started to thicken, I tossed in about 1 cup of Parmesan cheese. And then we're just going to kind of stir and let that cheese melt. You want to make sure that you keep stirring until it's pretty melty, because otherwise it can melt in clumps and then it's harder to break it down and get it distributed throughout the sauce. But once you've got it all nicely melted, we're going to let that simmer for about 5 more minutes. And then that is just frozen chopped broccoli. It cost me like 80 cents, 90 cents from the freezer section at Walmart. And I just thawed it in the microwave until it was, heated through. And I drained it in a colander because I didn't want any of that excess water, and then dumped it right into my Alfredo sauce. And we're just going to let that simmer for a couple more minutes so it can all kind of meld together. And then we're just going to pour it on top of some pasta. And that is that. This really was a simple and delicious meal. Of course, you could always change things up, put whatever veggies you want in there, add more veggies or a different veggie. It's up to you. You could add meat to it if you want, chicken or seafood or something. If you want to spice it up, toss in some red pepper flakes. That is totally up to you. Again, this is just how we used to eat it back when we were a lot younger and we first got together, and it had been a while, so I made it again. And there it is. So simple, but so, so delicious. Really, really a nice meal to kind of end the week. Anyway, that is my What's for Dinner video for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing my meal plan with you guys. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing. I appreciate all you guys so much, and I will see you soon with another video.